Live from Wrestling 911 headquarters, I'm your host, Snowman Jones. That's right, we're here in Beefcake, Michigan on I-95 and 696, and this is Wrestling 911 Audio. We've got a big show. This should be a popular show because of the topic. I think there's a lot of people that like it. We're going to talk about the tallest wrestlers in wrestling history. And I know a lot of people will be able to argue and contend points here, so please leave comments at the bottom of the channel. Tell us your thoughts, and we're going to give what our analysis is of the tallest wrestlers in wrestling history. Now, first off, the number one, the tallest guy in wrestling history, this is going to be a disputed one. We're going to go with Paul Bunyan, Max Palmer. Max Palmer, billed at 7'6", may, at his wrestling time frame, been shorter than Giant Gonzalez Elegante. But Max Palmer, a.k.a. Paul Bunyan, who was a movie star in the 50s and 60s, when he died, and in his casket, he measured 8'2" tall. Now, his wrestling height, again, 7'6", 7'7". He only wrestled for a couple years back in the 70s. He was an actor. You can look him up. He was a preacher. He was the Goliath for Christ at one point in his career. He was a carny. He did a lot of stuff. He was in movies like Invaders from Mars, Killer Ape. He was in Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis's, not Jerry Lawler's, Comedy Hour. So he's an interesting guy. He was on the Jimmy Durante show even. And he died and he was 8'2" tall. He had acromegaly, which means that you keep growing through your entire life, and at 56 years old, in 1984, he passed away, 8'2". I got to give him the call as the tallest wrestler. Now there's Jorge Gonzalez, or the Giant Gonzalez Elegante, from Argentina, 2.44 meters tall. Here's this guy. He's the tallest guy in kind of your big league wrestling, your WWE, WCW wrestling, certified the tallest athlete in professional wrestling by the Guinness Book of World Records. So when he wrestled, he was the tallest. And Jorge Gonzalez, he's an interesting guy. Actually, I know some stories. I interviewed Bill Alfonso, and if you go to marcuspitt.com, you can buy the DVD, where Bill Alfonso tells stories where Bill Alfonso was essentially hired to be Elegante's personal manager, trainer, and whatnot. And when Elegante was recovering from his knee surgeries, Bill Alfonso owned some land outside of Tampa, a big couple acres, and they said Bill Alfonso and Giant Gonzalez would tool around on golf carts throughout the land and go to stores and do stuff, and it was quite the sight to see, and this was back in the late 80s. Jorge Gonzalez, who was brought in by TBS, Turner, basically to be a basketball player. They recruited him for the Atlanta Hawks, eventually found a home in wrestling, was well paid for a wrestler because he was making basketball money at the time. And when Bill Alfonso and Elegante both kind of came over to the WWE at the same time, if you remember, The Undertaker faced Elegante. Elegante lost the match at WrestleMania, and that was a match where referee Bill Alfonso, pre-ECW days, took a big choke slam, suffered a concussion. I think he got something like a $10,000 or $20,000 bonus after taking that concussion. WWE certainly rewards people when they get a big injury. They give them a couple extra bucks and a few days off. Next up, I would have to say, number 3 on our list, so we went Max Palmer, Jorge Gonzalez, the Giant Gonzalez, and Paul Bunyan. Next up has got to be Big John Elmo Harris. Big John Harris, also known as just Big John. You've seen him in wrestling magazines. I've posted a picture of him on marcuspitt.com's classic wrestling photos. You probably, if you know Big John from anywhere that's not wrestling, you know him from Pee-wee's Big Adventure. If you remember, he was in the Pee-wee Herman movie. He was the giant guy that, I think Pee-wee was looking for his bike. Pee-wee got into an argument with a trucker, and it was this gigantic trucker, and Big John Harris played that part. Just a massive guy. He's probably about 7'5", 7'6", and he's going to list number 3 on our tallest wrestlers. And he wrestled for several years, and he was in kind of the Mid-South area, and he's worked all around the country, so he's definitely a wrestler. They advertised him at 7'6". Most people say he's arguably 7'5". Third tallest wrestler. Next up, again, when we get into just around the 7-foot mark, it really does make it hard to come up with a wrestler because, there's half an inch here and there. And a lot of these guys, they're constantly growing taller, but they're getting more sloop-shouldered and a little bit shorter too, so it's really hard to measure folks. Oftentimes, they don't even know their exact height. But the number 4 we're going to give to Andre Rene Rasimov. That's Andre the Giant to you and me. Billed at 7'5". People say at his peak he was 7'2", and at time of death he was probably 6'8", 6'9". And I know people that'll say he was shorter than that. He had a couple vertebrae, removed, repaired, or whatever. He was very hunched over by the time of his death. So he really wasn't that tall of an individual by the end of his life, particularly when he was trying to walk around. But you lay him out, and at his peak, well over 7 foot, the 8th wonder of the world, the guy who really made Hulk Hogan's career at WrestleMania 3, if you will. Not to say that Hulk Hogan wasn't the chosen one before that, but he gets a lot of credit for making Hulk Hogan's career. Andre the Giant is ranked next in our list. So far we've had Paul Bunyan, Giant Gonzalez, Big John Harris, Andre the Giant, and Gargantua is going to be next. Billed at 8'4" and 50 stone in his time in England. Gargantua was 7'2", born in Germany, was a wrestler in England, throughout Europe, and in Germany. Not a lot known about this guy. He was born in 1913, died in 1969. Just a big wrestler. Advertised 7'2". Next up on our list, the Yeti Mania, Ron Reese. Personally, I love this guy as the Super Giant Ninja. He wrestled at least once in WCW on Saturday night as the Super Giant Ninja, which, I don't know, he was, when you're 7'2", he was a build, 7'2", but, and actually as the Yeti, he was billed at 7'8". They actually patted his head, wrapped cloths around him, and tried to make him look taller and put boosts in his shoes, so he just seemed gigantic. But he was a good 7'1", 7'1.5", Ron Reese, and to me, when he was the Super Giant Ninja, it was just hilarious, because here's this guy who's just a monster, but he's not necessarily coordinated or athletic, so to call him a ninja and he's fallen over himself always struck me as humorous. So our 7th tallest wrestler, the Giant Silva. He's also the tallest Brazilian kickboxer, billed at 7'8", actually about 7'2". Hard to judge, I would say, between him and Ron Reese, who's taller. You don't see these two guys standing back to back, and in fact, like I said, a lot of these guys, once you get into that 7'2" range, there's just a lot of them. He was a member of the Oddities. That's what I remember him most from. I did see a match with him and Great Khali, and you can probably find it on YouTube, that took place in Japan. Frankly, when I first saw this guy, and then I saw Khali, for a brief moment I thought they were the same dude. I thought maybe Khali was just a steroided up version of Giant Silva. But Giant Singe, the Great Khali, would be next on our list at 7'1", 7'2" again. 463 pounds, essentially, arguably pretty much the same size. Giant Silva, Great Khali. Great Khali, the thing about him in the ring, he's massive, he's strong, he's impressive to look at, and he promotes to the Indian audience, which is a growing demographic for the WWE, so he probably makes a lot of money for the group, selling toys and whatnot. But he just doesn't look healthy. The poor guy looks like he's going to die. Has a hard time walking around in the ring like a lot of the Giants. He doesn't take a bump very well. He actually supposedly killed a man in the ring doing that double choke slam, slipped and broke the guy's neck or whatever. Really an interesting individual. Probably better off for PR and you don't really want to see him wrestling too many matches. Because, when you get to that height, you don't want to see people doing more damage to their bodies when they're already having, acromegaly, where their bones keep growing. That does damage to their bodies. And if you're constantly doing backdrops and falling and whatnot, that's just not good for your skeletal development. All right. Then next on our list, the Big Show, Paul White. Just over 7 foot tall, billed as the largest professional wrestler, the first wrestler to win the WWE, WCW, and ECW titles, billed at 7'4". And when he started with WCW, he was known as the Giant, now known as the Big Show, Paul White. I liked when he came out as Andre the Giant's son. He was a lot thinner. He had a basketball career before that, the long hair. Threw Andre the Giant's shirt at Hulk Hogan at, Bash at the Beach. It was a really interesting story. Born in 1972, so the guy's 40 years old already and still doing well in the ring. Got to give him a lot of credit. So, let's go over our list again. Got number 1, Paul Bunyan. 2, Giant Gonzalez. 3, Big John. 4, Andre the Giant. 5, Gargantua. 6, Ron Reese. 7, Giant Silva. 8, The Great Khali. 9 is The Big Show. Alright, folks. So who's number 10? That's the real controversial question that we have here. And frankly, I'm going to have to go with the big man himself, Mr. Mustache, Eli Cottonwood, Kip Christensen. I've met this guy. I saw him at FCW. I saw him, I sat next to his girlfriend one time outside the ring. Interesting individual. We saw him on NXT make a bit of an embarrassment of himself. His clip, cutting a promo about his mustache, actually made it to the Soup with Joel McHale and got a lot of harassment. But the 7-foot giant Eli Cottonwood makes the list of the top 10 largest wrestlers in history. And one thing I noticed about Eli Cottonwood, he and Jackson Andrews, Steve Slocum, were training together, and I used to watch them every week. And the one thing that those guys did better than anyone was hang up the signs outside the arena for the upcoming events. They used to be able to reach the top of the trailers, tie up the signs. So Jackson Andrews, who probably would have been number 12 or 13 on our list, and Eli Cottonwood definitely had some capabilities that a lot of wrestlers don't have. So folks, I'm Snowman Jones. Check out our other shows. Tell us what you want to hear. Leave your comments. What do you think? Should we have put Nathan Jones or Kevin Nash on the list? What about Michael Jarvie, the big titan from FCW, a Florida wrestler? Jackson Andrews, should he have been on the list? What about some of the other 7-foot Tron and the Irish Nightmare and Kevin Nash, Killer Kowalski Jr., Matt Morgan, Big Sky, remember him? Kamala 2, Uncle Elmer, Kane, The Undertaker, Psycho Sid, Big John Studd, Giant Baba. Should they have been on the list? I see them all as under 7 foot. Give me your comments. Thanks again for listening to the show, folks. I'm Snowman Jones, and I'm out of here.